You've probably heard the saying,
saved in the edit.
Fan edits have been a huge part of Star Wars forever.
The Kubrick edit of Artificial Intelligence, the purist edit of The Two Towers, the Greater Scott edition of Back to the Future, 12 dozen edits of The Hobbit, the chronological cut of Pulp Fiction. Topher Grace is apparently quite the accomplished fan editor. Steven Soderbergh's even gotten in on the game.
Even A New Hope was kind of saved in the edit. So can the Acolyte be saved in an edit? No, I'm not going to be watching it on Disney Plus. I am watching the Corcoran cut. Is this watchable? Is this good? I'm so interested because I think there were elements of the Acolyte, particularly in the ideas of the show, that were really interesting. This time period is really interesting. The idea of the Sith in the shadows during this 1,000 years of peace, really interesting. What we got, not so much. So how in the world is this going to be made better? Okay, I'm just going to spitball. Here we go. If you've been here this long, thank you. Here's some of my thoughts. I think originally the Acolyte TV show was a 1 out of 10, maybe a 1.5 out of 10, because I think there were some visuals that were interesting and intriguing. The fan edit, this fan edit, I think takes it from a 1 out of 10 into the like. And if you hear something in the background, yes, I'm doing laundry right now. It's life, right? You just got to do it. So here we are. Here it is. I can't show it, but I can show you the information down in the description below if you would like to get this and link emailed to you so that you can watch it, because you're not allowed to put it out there. You're not allowed to do anything where you can make money off of it or sell it. It's not for resale. Instead, this was actually done as part of a film school study in cinema, and I'm interested. Okay, let's do this. Let's see how this goes. Am I gonna regret the next 2 hours and 45 minutes? We shall see. We shall see. Okay, so the opening scene is still the same. Master Indara still dies in the first 5 minutes. You can't change that. All the corny dialogue is gone. It was more interesting. We're left wondering and wanting to know. Let's see where this goes. I need to screenshot this, because there's only so much you can do in the edit, though. Okay, then we hop to Brendock 16 years earlier, right after that. Now, in the original show, we went right to Osha. Part of the reason is that this cut is mostly through the eyes of Soul. That Soul is really the main character here. And so it opens with Soul on Brendock. They're looking at the soil. They're doing all the different things. See, the reason that this works really well, that they went right from Indara dying to Brendock 16 years earlier, is mainly because I think that it helps us get an idea of this character, of why and what, and we're looking at it through the eyes of the Jedi, not so much through the eyes of May and Osha. I'm going to be pausing at different times, kind of chatting about what is a little bit different. Not every single aspect, but the things that stuck out to me. So if you want to go watch this for yourself before I break it down, click the link in the description below and go do that, and then come back to this video. Otherwise, let's keep rolling. Okay, so I find it really interesting that there's a few things that have been taken out, particularly when this flashback time to May and Osha, looking at the witches, the power of one, the power of two, the power of many, that music was still used, but it was way less cheesy. It wasn't all of them chanting. It was just kind of underneath. That was very different. All of the talk of the Force being a thread that they're pulling on, all that is gone. It's all just super streamlined. And as I'm sitting here watching, pretending as if I don't know the show, pretending as if I'm seeing this for the first time, I'm sitting here going, these witches are mysterious and interesting. They definitely have been pushed to the outskirts. They're being hunted, but I don't know why. And they're doing some kind of ceremony, and I don't need to know. It's somewhat dark and mysterious. And Soul is really looking like he's concerned because of the things that they showed, because they've used flashback really well early in the show, right? This is the way that you use flashbacks. You get us into the show with an action sequence early on or into the movie with Indara dying right away with this assassin, and we're not quite sure what's going on with that. And now we flash back 16 years ago. We don't yet know that these girls, one of them is that assassin. We don't know that yet necessarily. We're probably going to find that out as this ceremony goes on, and there's so much extra contextual stuff that wasn't really needed. And until you see an edit like this, where it's taken things and condensed it down, you really start to realize how much fluff and nothingness. I'm going to be honest, I didn't think I'd be into it this much. This edit is really good. This is such a better way to introduce the witches. Just saying. You cut out all the extra stuff and you just get to the way that he did it here. It's just kind of this weird ceremony and then right into this confrontation with the Jedi. It cuts out all the extra stuff, the conversation. Yeah. It also cuts out the things that Disney wanted to be in there with these witches, if you know what I mean. And so then it goes from all of that, right? It takes all of the stuff on Brendock, all to that final conclusion of the fight, and it's all driven by Soul from Soul's perspective. So then it jumps ahead 16 years to what? To Soul training younglings on Coruscant. So one of the things that I like that's happened so far is May has really not been in this first hour of the movie almost at all, except in the flashback scenes and the very opening in the first 5 minutes. It's all been centered around Soul. And so when we get about an hour in and they're starting to try and trace down the things, like figuring out what happened to Torben, it really is a mystery. We don't know either. We haven't seen these other scenes of May breaking into the temple and these weird interactions with Torben, these weird interactions in other places, because most of the dialogue that we get from May, and even the dialogue we get with May and Kymir early on, is super clunky. It's weird. It doesn't work. And it just doesn't add anything to their characters, really. So all of that is gone. All of that is eliminated. You don't have these moments of the stranger with a lightsaber saying, you have to kill without a weapon. All of that is gone. All of this, like, only a Jedi starts their lightsaber when they're ready to kill. All of that is gone. Because a lot of that clunky dialogue was taken out around all of the May, Kymir, all of that. When May and Soul meet, he's confused why she's not using a weapon and going to hand-to-hand combat. And that confusion actually means something. Just like us, we're wondering the same thing. Yeah, why? Because the only thing that Kymir said in the shop was, did you use the poison? Did not. He'd be so happy if you didn't. They've been able to preserve something interesting and pull out a kind of ridiculous plot line that didn't make sense up to this point. And even if it doesn't go anywhere after that question, there still stands to be something strange in it. We don't have that weird end the way we had the end of episode 1 to try and create some mystery around something that didn't make sense at all in the show. And of course, people might say, well, it was going to be teased out in future seasons. That's not how it works. If you're going to bring up something that big and not explain it, and at least even give some information as to why, it's pointless. And when it was a core part of who May was, a core plot line that goes unexplained and made no sense, this is why people didn't like the show. But here's the problem. You can't fix everything, because even though Soul is now confronting May and in her head, right? Like this idea of like, you don't even know the identity of your master. He didn't try that with Chimere just a few scenes earlier. And so even in the edit, you can't fix broken story completely, because it makes no sense that he would be able to go into her mind, but he wouldn't try to find the truth from Chimere, as if they're just taking him at his word for what he said in that shop. So there's still massive problems, but this is way better. Surprise, surprise, some of the things that didn't lend to the story at all. The obnoxious treating of Yord and just making fun of him. The weird tension between Osha and Jeki. Like, there's just so many things that were in this show that once you see them removed, make you go, huh, they didn't actually help the story at all, and actually clouded the intent and the desire to get something across. I think there's a lot being communicated here, and it almost feels like this Cochrane edit, this Cochrane cut, got to the heart of what was trying to be communicated, but took away a lot of the things that Leslie Headland forced into the edit and into the story. Interesting. I keep saying that word. I need a new word. Comment down below. What should I say instead of the word interesting? Movie snacks. Pretty good. I still don't understand how Chimere and May were able to find Kalnaka, yet the Jedi needed to use a tracker to find him. Makes no sense. Can't fix that in the edit. Okay, one of the things I'm noticing that is absolutely awesome in this edit and in this cut is the use of dialogue from other scenes over top of or behind like what's going on. So I'll give an example of where that is. And it's hard to do. It's really hard to do, especially when that dialogue is taken from a different scene, usually with different music underneath it. And there's a lot of challenges in that because you don't have access to the individual tracks the way you would if you were actually editing this. You can't just take out the audio and shift it around and whatever else. There's one scene when they're in the forest and they first meet the moth thing that's attracted to the light, and right after Soul takes out that moth, you then hear the audio of Jeki and Yord talking about how it's attracted to light, went right to the saber. That's taken from a different time, but yet put in here to condense everything to make you go, oh, that's interesting. They go after light. And that's all we need. Now we're moving on. And that will probably come up later here in a few minutes when we get to the fights and everything going on. But that's all you needed. You didn't need all the extra stuff that had been associated around with it. And taking things like that and doing that type of work in the edit. Now, yes, if you're going to get picky, you could look very closely and their mouths weren't really moving in the background when you heard the audio. But this is what you have to do in a fan edit. And it's really good. The show, the movie itself is not fantastic, but it's good. It's light years better. And I mean this. I mean, light years better than the original Acolyte show. And I'm really just kind of wondering now, are all these shows better as movies? I don't know if I should even say this out loud. I'm going to say it. I kind of want to do an Andor edit. What would Andor be like as a movie? I don't have the time. I don't know. Let me know down below if you think that's a good idea. Let's keep going. We're about halfway through the film. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but thanks for being here. If you're enjoying this type of just raw reaction to a fan edit, let me know down below. What should I do next? What should I react to next? And if you haven't liked the video already, do that, please. Well, now kids are home, and just if you're a teacher, don't give kids homework that they have to play a recorder. If you hear that in the background, now you know what it is. Let's keep going. Just saw the scene where Osha takes off Pip's head and slaps it onto Chymere's back, and he gets pulled up with all of the moth-type creatures. Like they haven't been attracted to the light being emitted by lightsabers. They've just been waiting for a flashlight. Again, why? Why the difference? Why would they say they're attracted to lightsabers earlier and now, wait, are they attracted to lightsabers, or are they just attracted at this moment in the story to a flashlight that is somehow brighter than a lightsaber? Because the lightsabers in the show are dim to begin with. That's a different story. And then he's pulled up because of this. And of course we know he's not dead. But this whole thing, just an absolute ridiculous thing that only exists in the show because it's a plot device. It's to get the story moving, even though it breaks what the own universe of this show has set to be an understanding of how these creatures act. Makes no sense, right? And these are the types of inconsistencies that just are so frustrating that you can overlook. We can overlook these when the other stuff is good. There's inconsistencies in all of Star Wars. But when the other stuff is good, the inconsistencies, you can deal with them. You can kind of go, okay, I admit that stuff is not great, but I'm going to keep moving. He cut out the haircut. I like it. Works just as well without the haircut, mainly because you're still going to get these next few scenes. You're kind of wondering, something feels weird, something feels off. The haircut was too on the nose. Do we still get Thirst Trap Chimere? Oh, let's see. Here's an example of a little change that I think gets to the intent of what the writing was trying to do, but just didn't know how to do it. But the scene where Osha is putting on Chymere's helmet, and when she puts it on, in the original, all you ever hear is her breathing. I think it's meant to kind of be like Darth Vader's breathing, right? Like just you alone and what you bring in there. But in the other version, not to mention her having the helmet on and taking the helmet off is not broken up by an entire flashback episode, which made no sense. In the movie, she goes from having it on, with it on, hearing her mother's voice taken from other parts in the show, talking about how the galaxy isn't safe for women like us, right? Now that us is changed in context in what she's doing, and then the whole thing happens with Chimere trying to help her off. He gets possessed. But that connection, that voice of Mother Anastasia in the helmet with Osha, and then immediately the next thing you see is Chimere's eyes going black, just like what had been happening earlier in the previous scenes. It starts to connect everything in an actual congruent way. Now, whether you like it or not, let's put that aside for a moment, but it's decisions like that that now you watch this and go, oh, that makes sense, where before it really didn't. Who are the editors, right? Like, are the editors allowed to make any actual changes, or do they just have to stick with the script and the storyboard? They can't do any of what's being done right here, which makes it actually better. So instead of the creativity of an editor who might be able to see, oh, I can heighten the emotion, or I can change some of this around, are they even given any of the freedom to do that? Probably not. That's why this is so much better. Oh, okay. Here are my thoughts. Okay, I'm just going to spitball. Here we go. If you've been here this long, thank you. Here's some of my thoughts. I think originally the Acolyte TV show was a 1 out of 10, maybe a 1.5 out of 10, because I think there were some visuals that were interesting and intriguing. The fan edit, this fan edit, I think takes it from a 1 out of 10 into the like 6 to 7 out of 10. I'm going to say 6.5. Everything is now through the eyes of Soul. So we don't have these random weird flashback just episodes and of this view from the Jedi and this view from May and this view from Osha and this view. It's all streamlined to tell an actual story. Now, there's still massive issues I have with some of the show, but I think it did a lot to take away some of those. One of the things that I had a huge issue with that was gone, Yoda. It doesn't end with Yoda. It ends with Plagueis right there at the end, right after Osha and Chimere are there together. And it almost gives this feeling of like, he's going to be dissatisfied now. He's not going to be happy that Chimere and Osha are together. Like you could make that case that what Chimere has been doing is against his master. And now that sets up an interesting perspective as opposed to the way it was presented in the show, which it felt like it was all kind of, I don't know, it was weird. It didn't work. This worked. This ending is a little bit better. Again, not great, but a little bit better. The addition and the tweaking of some of the color grading in some aspects, some definite moments of adding more sound effects, more like gravitas, more emotion than what was there. I think the use of audio from other times in the show underneath moments where it was silent or other things was really helpful. But in the end, the main story was Soul. This Jedi who gets all this blamed on him, but yet he was just trying to do what he thought was right, but it took him down paths that he never would have wanted to go down. I think heightens what was the attempt. I think this was the desire. So what I would say is I think that what has been done here in this edit wasn't to change the Acolyte, but try to bring out what was good in it and get rid of all the clunky dialogue, get rid of all the awkwardness and but there are some things you can't get rid of, right? There's just some things you couldn't, and that had to be, and that's why it's still not perfect. It's not great, but it's okay. Man, I'm impressed. I'm impressed what someone was able to do with the Acolyte. I'll link down below all the information if you want to go see this fan edit. Again, even this is coming from someone who did not enjoy the Acolyte. Well, I think the Acolyte is a disaster. I think what it tried to do completely failed. But I was one that still said, I think the idea of it was interesting. The execution was terrible. And making it into a movie, just watching this type of fan edit, it makes me want to watch the others that I've seen that are out there on other shows, on Kenobi and Ahsoka and those other shows that I did not really enjoy, mainly because of story choices and pacing and those types of things. It makes me question if shows are worth it at all. It's much smoother. I'm impressed. I'm so absolutely surprised. It wasn't a waste of my time. I think it changed the Acolyte into something that was almost enjoyable. If you've made it all the way through, you are a true one. I have no idea how long this video is going to be. I'll try to chop it down into something manageable. I don't know. This took a while, but hey, I'll catch you on the next one. Remember, the Force will be with you always.